Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Daryl Camp, in for Dan Clark. So we won't have finalized results in the New York City mayoral primary for a couple of weeks, partially due to a system called ranked choice voting. That's where voters rank their top 5 candidates, with the lowest scoring candidate being eliminated in each round until someone gets above 50% of the vote. Meanwhile, in Buffalo, Mayor Byron Brown was upset in the Democratic primary by challenger India Walton, and in Rochester, incumbent Lovely Warren was defeated by Malik Evans. Then, the day after the primary, Governor Cuomo announced that he'd be allowing his emergency powers granted by the legislature at the start of the pandemic to expire, but that could impact certain businesses. So now, to break down those stories, we have Bernadette Hogan from the New York Post. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I am fantastic. So I was thrown off, honestly, the most by Byron Brown. He's been around for over a decade in Buffalo, and he's a strong Cuomo ally, and he was upset. Why did that happen?
Right, as you said, Byron Brown, this would have been his 5th term, right? He's been in office quite a while, Democrat, establishment Democrat, and he was upset by India Walton, someone that was endorsed by the WFP and the DSA, so the Democratic Socialists of America, someone that's definitely more to the left as opposed to Byron Brown, who, as you said, an ally of Governor Cuomo and who did serve also as the chairman of the state Democratic Party. This was a big deal because Byron Brown wouldn't engage in debates with India Walton despite multiple attempts to have that kind of, interplay of ideas and also just give voters a chance to figure out, maybe we want to, know who this other person that is challenging Byron Brown, who's been in office a while. So that was a big upset, especially considering if you look at voter turnout, the primaries in New York, we have a closed primary state. So really at the end of the day, that's what matters. So, and Democrats do decide those votes, especially in these upstate cities where there is a majority of Democratic registered voters. Mm-hmm. And so this was a big deal because India Walton will be the first socialist, more left-leaning Democrat in a while to run a major city. But at the end of the day, Byron Brown wasn't engaging in normal tactics again. He was not. He thought that he could just go right in and not have to engage with his opponent, and maybe voters were sick of that.
Yeah, they very well may have been, but in Rochester it was far less surprising because when you have Lovely Warren, who is she's gotten bad press lately because of things surrounding her, and she is having personal issues right now. Far less surprising that Malik Evans was able to win that one there. And in cities where, Albany is one of them, where the Democratic primary is often the general election, this was more important than I think a lot of people realized. Also, speaking of the primary, in New York City we had ranked choice voting. It is a system that confuses everyone, even journalists, and there are already delays because of absentee ballots. How much longer are we expecting to wait until we know who officially, I know Eric Adams is the favorite, but who officially will be the next New York City mayor?
Right, as you said, we still have to wait on a whole host of absentee ballots that need to be counted. And as you also said, ranked choice voting is new in the city, and this is something that has been confusing voters, journalists alike, et cetera. It's even myself, my colleagues in the city with the New York Post did a fantastic job figuring this out. But right now, as you said, Eric Adams, he was a former NYPD cop. I think he was higher up. He also served as a New York State senator, and he was Brooklyn Borough president. And he ran a campaign that really, right now, if you're looking at where who went for him, who ended up voting for him, he's captured large swaths of the Bronx, Brooklyn, and he right now is in the lead. And behind him is Catherine Garcia. She was the sanitation commissioner of the city of New York. Maya Wiley, who also served in the de Blasio administration. Those two women are in second place on this ranked choice voter structure. And in order for them to potentially overcome Eric Adams, who has a commanding lead right now of about 9-10 points. The way that the system is set up is they would have to, one or the other would have to gain a majority of these absentee or I suppose second place finishing spots to overtake Eric Adams. And Adams is interesting because he's somebody that, again, he's really made crime and public safety a big part of his campaign.
As the governor has talked about recently as well.
Right, and truly, like, if we're talking about establishment candidates and upsets, I mean, he's somebody that New Yorkers or New York City citizens, we're really gravitating towards, especially as the city is trying to get back from the last year of the pandemic, just ravishing the city. And also we have seen a spike in crime in New York City, as well as, you know, those other cities across the state.
Yep.
But it's definitely an interesting system that we're going to have to figure out and see how that works, because then we go to the general and there's months between.
And it doesn't really look like that's going to make its way upstate. So the last thing we have time for is the governor. The governor says, I'm not going to even attempt to renew my emergency powers, but there were ramifications. A lot of restaurant owners are saying, hey, alcohol to go is something we loved and we can't do that anymore. So in a sense, did we successfully sell salt to a slug here? The people that were calling for his emergency powers to be removed, are they now rethinking that?
Well, so the emergency powers allowed the governor to issue a whole host of executive orders, right, that did change. It just made it easier for him to make changes to manage the pandemic. And some of those things assisted with businesses that were already, you know, losing, either were closed, were losing revenue hand over fist. And one of those big points, like you just said, is this alcohol to go measure, which permitted the state to just rewrite the laws on the books that the state liquor authority has had on for years and years, that banned restaurants and bars from selling cocktails to go. And that's a problem because, again, restaurants are still struggling. However, the legislature could have passed a bill that would have cemented that and changed the current statute without the governor's emergency powers. And it's definitely possible within the next session cycle, or next year though, so it'll take some time. But overall, county leaders have said that these emergency powers, these executive orders, have been problematic and potentially unconstitutional. You know, they just released a new book that county leaders were saying, we were fighting with these directives the entire way when the governor would announce them, to the point where we would have to implement them in the community, because again, it changed the way that they operated with local government. So something like alcohol to go is definitely an important measure, but at the end of the day, what this does is it brings the power back, or it provides more of an equal balance between how local governments can handle their communities and then the interplay with the state, which is in constant communication.
Well, there is always more we can talk about, but we are fresh out of time. Bernadette Hogan from The Post, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.